Welcome to Snooze Tales Studio. Hello, dear listeners. Tonight, we have a very special story for you, called The Timeless Fairy Tale Cottage. Nestle into your blankets, take a deep breath, and let us take you to a peaceful place, filled with magic and wonder, where time seems to stand still. Once upon a time, deep within a sprawling forest where the air was fresh and the sunlight filtered through thick, ancient branches, there stood a little cottage. It was no ordinary cottage, for this was a place where time moved at its own gentle pace. A timeless fairy tale cottage hidden away from the bustle of the world. The cottage was built of moss-covered stone, with a thatched roof and ivy climbing up its walls. Flower boxes beneath each window brimmed with colorful blooms, and the air around the cottage was always filled with the soft hum of bees and the fragrance of lavender. Living in the cottage was a woman named Iloan. She had a gentle spirit and kind eyes, and she wore dresses that seemed to be stitched from the very fabric of the forest, earthy greens and browns, with embroidered flowers that danced at the hem. Iloan had lived in the cottage for as long as she could remember, and each day brought new joy in the simple wonders of her enchanted home. Each morning she would wake to the sound of the forest coming alive, birds singing their cheerful songs, the rustle of the leaves as the breeze swept through the treetops, and the soft gurgle of a nearby brook. She would open her windows to let in the fresh morning air and hum a tune that seemed to make the flowers bloom even brighter. Iloan tended her garden with care, watering the herbs and flowers, speaking gently to each plant as if they were old friends. Delay. Once she often found herself lost in the beauty of her garden, the vibrant colors of the flowers, the gentle buzzing of bees, and the way the sunlight danced on the leaves. Time seemed to slow down as she moved through her garden, her hands tending the earth with love and care. The cottage itself was filled with the warmth of simple comforts. In the kitchen, a kettle always rested on the stove, ready to brew tea made from the herbs Iloan gathered. Shelves lined with jars of dried herbs, flowers, and spices gave the room a pleasant, earthy scent. The living room had a cozy fireplace with a plush armchair beside it, and a small table where Iloan would sit and write letters or sketch pictures of the animals she saw in the forest. Delay. Once above the fireplace, a clock ticked softly, though the hands moved slowly, as if time here was never in a hurry. The cottage was a sanctuary, a place where every corner held a memory, every object a story. There were old books with worn pages, delicate trinkets collected from the forest, and candles that filled the room with a warm, flickering glow in the evenings. One fine afternoon, as the sun was casting golden rays through the treetops, Iloan heard a knock on the door. It was a gentle knock, as if the visitor were unsure of their welcome. Iloan opened the door to find a young girl standing on her doorstep, her eyes wide with wonder. She had rosy cheeks, tousled hair, and a basket filled with wildflowers in her hand. "Hello," Iloan said kindly, smiling down at the girl. "What brings you here, my dear?" The girl looked up at her with bright eyes. "Delay, Wands, my name is Angwin," she said, her voice soft. "I was picking flowers in the meadow, and I got a bit lost. Then I saw your cottage, and it looked like something out of a storybook." Iloan's heart warmed at the girl's words. "You are very welcome here, Angwin," she said. "Come inside, and I will make us some tea." Angwin followed Iloan into the cottage, her eyes wide as she looked around at the cozy, magical space. She took in the scent of lavender and honey, the soft ticking of the clock, and the gentle crackle of the fire that Iloan had stoked in the hearth. She sat at the small table while Iloan prepared tea, her hands moving with practiced ease as she added herbs to the pot. the steam rising with a fragrant aroma. "This is a special place," Amwin said, her voice filled with awe. "Delay, once, it feels like time doesn't move the same way here." Eloan smiled, pouring the tea into 2 delicate cups. "That's because it doesn't. Delay, once," she said. "This cottage is a place where time slows down, where the world outside seems to fade away. Here, we can just be." They sipped their tea together, the warmth of the drink filling them with a sense of calm. Amwin listened as Eloan spoke of the forest, of the animals that lived there, and of the magic that existed in every leaf and flower. She spoke of the moonlit nights when the fireflies danced like stars among the trees, and of the mornings when the mist hung low over the ground, giving the forest an otherworldly glow. Eloan described the way the forest seemed to breathe, how each creature had its own story, and how the trees whispered to each other on quiet nights. Amwin listened, her eyes wide with wonder, feeling as though she were part of a grand, timeless tale. As the afternoon turned to evening, Eloan lit a lantern, its soft glow filling the cottage with a golden light. Amwin felt a sense of peace unlike anything she had ever known. She knew she would have to leave soon to find her way back to her own home, but for now she was content to stay in this timeless place, to listen to the stories of the forest, and to feel the gentle magic of the cottage around her. Eloan noticed how Amwin's eyes seemed to sparkle as she gazed around the cottage. To make the evening even more special, she opened a small wooden box that rested on a shelf. From it, she took out a handful of tiny, glimmering crystals. "These," Eloan said, holding them up to the lantern light, "are moon crystals. They capture the light of the moon and help us see the magic of the night." Amwin watched in amazement as Eloan hung the crystals around the room, each one casting a soft, shimmering glow. The walls seemed to dance with light, and the entire room was filled with an enchanting, dreamy atmosphere. Amwin could hardly believe her eyes. It was as though the magic of the forest had come to life inside the little cottage. The crystals twinkled like stars, and the cottage seemed to hum with a gentle energy, as if it were alive with the stories and dreams of everyone who had ever visited. "Will I be able to come back? Delay?" Once Amwin asked as she stood at the door, her basket of flowers in her hand. Eloan smiled, her eyes warm. "The cottage will always be here. Delay," once she said. "Whenever you need a place to rest, to find peace, just follow the path through the forest. It will lead you back." Amwin nodded, a soft smile on her lips. She waved goodbye and walked down the path, the lantern light from the cottage glowing softly behind her, guiding her way until she disappeared into the forest. Eloan watched her go, her heart filled with warmth, knowing that the little cottage had given another visitor a moment of magic and peace. That night, as the stars began to twinkle in the sky, Eloan sat by the fire, the soft ticking of the clock the only sound in the room. She sipped her tea and looked out the window at the moonlit forest. The world outside was ever-changing, but here in her cottage, time moved gently, and the magic of the forest was always close by. As she sat by the fire, Eloan's thoughts wandered to the many visitors who had come to her little cottage over the years. There was the old man who had lost his way while traveling and found comfort in the warmth of the fireplace. There were the children who had come, full of laughter and curiosity, to listen to stories of talking foxes and enchanted streams. Each person who had found their way to the cottage had brought something unique, and each had left with a sense of peace, as though they had been touched by the gentle magic of the place. Eloan reached for her journal, a leather-bound book filled with sketches, notes, and memories. She opened it to a blank page and began to draw the scene from earlier. Hanwon sitting at the table, her eyes wide with wonder as the moon crystals shimmered around her. She added details to the drawing, the steam rising from the tea, the soft light of the lantern, and the wildflowers that Hanwon had brought with her. As she drew, Iloan felt a deep sense of gratitude for the life she led, for the magic that surrounded her, and for the simple joy of sharing that magic with others. Outside, the forest was alive with the sounds of the night, the gentle rustle of leaves, the distant hoot of an owl, and the soft chirping of crickets all blended together, creating a symphony that was both soothing and timeless. Iloan listened, her heart in tune with the rhythm of the forest. She knew that she was exactly where she was meant to be, in her little cottage, surrounded by the beauty of the forest and the quiet magic of the night. The fire slowly began to die down, and Iloan set her journal aside. She stood up, stretching her arms above her head, and then walked over to the window. The moon was high in the sky now, its silvery light bathing the forest in a soft glow. She could see the path that led away from the cottage, winding through the trees, and she knew that somewhere out there, Hanwon was making her way home, her heart filled with the magic of the day. Iloan smiled to herself, her eyes soft with contentment. She turned away from the window and made her way to her bedroom, a small, cozy space with a bed covered in a patchwork quilt and a window that looked out onto the forest. She climbed into bed, pulling the quilt up around her, and closed her eyes. The gentle ticking of the clock, the distant sounds of the forest, and the lingering warmth of the fire all lulled her into a deep, peaceful sleep. The night passed slowly, and the forest outside seemed to wrap the cottage in a gentle embrace. The moonlight filtered through the trees, casting soft patterns across the floor, and the stars twinkled above, watching over the little cottage and its sleeping inhabitant. In her dreams, Iloan wandered through the forest, her feet bare on the cool earth, the moon crystals lighting her path. Delay, won as she walked among the trees, her heart light, her spirit free, and she felt the presence of all the visitors who had come before, each one a part of the cottage's story, each one leaving behind a piece of their own magic. And so, the Fairytale cottage remained, a place of peace, of warmth, and of timeless magic, waiting for those who needed it, welcoming them with open arms, and giving them a place where they could simply be. It was a place where time moved gently, where the worries of the world seemed to fade away, and where the magic of the forest was always close by, ready to be shared with those who needed it most. Delay, once the cottage stood as a beacon of hope, a place where anyone who was lost, weary, or seeking comfort could find exactly what they needed, wrapped in the gentle embrace of the forest's magic. As the years passed, the cottage continued to be a refuge for all who stumbled upon it. Each season brought new visitors and new stories, and the cottage itself seemed to grow even more enchanting with each passing year. Delay. Once in the spring, the wildflowers around the cottage bloomed in a riot of colors, bright yellows, deep purples, and vibrant pinks, each flower adding its own beauty to the landscape. Birds built their nests in the eaves, their songs filling the air with melodies that echoed through the forest. Iloan would often sit on the stone steps, watching as new life emerged, her heart swelling with joy at the sight of baby birds taking their first flight or a family of deer grazing nearby. Summer brought long, warm days filled with sunlight that dappled through the leaves, casting playful shadows on the ground. The air was thick with the scent of herbs and flowers, and the forest seemed to hum with life. Children would visit, their laughter ringing out as they chased butterflies or splashed in the brook. Delay. One's Iloan would teach them how to weave flower crowns, their small hands carefully threading daisies and violets together, their faces lighting up with delight as they placed the crowns on their heads. She would tell them stories of the forest, of the mischievous fox who loved to play tricks, of the wise owl who knew all the secrets of the trees, and of the magical deer who could vanish into the mist with a flick of its tail. As autumn arrived, the forest transformed into a sea of gold, orange, and crimson. The leaves crunched beneath Eloan's feet as she walked along the paths, her basket filled with acorns, pine cones, and the last of the summer herbs. The air was crisp, and the scent of wood smoke drifted through the forest as the nights grew cooler. Delay. One's visitors would gather around the fire in the evenings, wrapped in blankets, sipping spiced tea as Eloan shared tales of the old days, of the magic that lived in every corner of the forest. They would watch as the moon rose above the treetops, its light casting a silvery glow over the clearing, and they would feel the quiet magic of the place seep into their bones. Winter turned the cottage into a cozy haven, a warm refuge from the chill outside. Snow blanketed the forest, muffling all sound and turning the world into a wonderland of white. Eloan would keep the fire roaring, the flames casting a golden glow that filled the room with warmth. She would bake bread and make hearty soups, the rich aromas filling the cottage and making it feel even cozier. Delay. Once the moon crystals would catch the light of the fire, their gentle glow adding to the enchantment of the room. Visitors would arrive, their cheeks pink from the cold, and Eloan would welcome them in, wrapping them in blankets and offering them a cup of tea. They would sit by the fire, watching the snow fall outside, their hearts filled with the simple joy of being in a place where they felt safe and warm. And so, the cottage remained, a place untouched by the passage of time, a place where magic lived in every leaf, every stone, and every breath of wind, a place where stories were shared, where hearts were healed, and where the beauty of the forest was always close by. Eloan knew that she was merely a caretaker of this magic, a guardian of a place that existed for all who needed it, and she was content, knowing that as long as the cottage stood, there would always be a place in the world where time moved gently, and where anyone seeking solace could find it. One evening, as the first stars began to appear, Eloan stood at the edge of the forest, watching the sky turn from blue to a deep, velvety indigo. She saw the glow of a lantern approaching through the trees, and her heart swelled with warmth. Another visitor, another story, another chance to share the magic of her little fairy tale cottage. She turned back toward the cottage, the golden light spilling from the windows, the soft glow of the moon crystals casting their gentle shimmer across the clearing. She knew that whoever was making their way to her door would find exactly what they needed: a cup of warm tea, a comforting story, and the quiet magic of a place where time stood still. And so, the timeless fairy tale cottage continued to be a beacon in the forest, a place of wonder, of warmth, and of love, a place where the stories never ended, and where the gentle magic of the forest was always waiting to be shared. Delay. Once it was a place that welcomed all with open arms, offering peace, comfort, and the reminder that even in a world that moved so quickly, there was still a place where time could slow, where hearts could rest, and where the magic of the forest could heal even the weariest of souls.